Hi, I'm John Valentino with John and Bob's. I'm here with Chip. Chip and I are going to plant a tree in heavy clay soil. And we're going to show you the best way to do that so that your tree will prosper and thrive. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Chip and I plan to be doing a lot more videos for you. If you like them, please click on like and click on subscribe and click on the bell so that you'll be notified every Sunday when we post our new videos. So the first step in planting a tree in clay soil is the excavation. This tree is a street tree on a project we're doing in the city of Fresno. City of Fresno requires street trees to follow certain parameters when the contractor plants them. And they require, particularly in a neighborhood like this that has heavy clay soil and hardpan. So not only clay soil, but hardpan under the clay soil. And hardpan means it's like concrete. And in those types of soils, the city requires that we drill, and we use a drilling rig. That's something we hire out. City requires that that be done quite a bit in advance so that the hole can be backfilled and settled, which we'll talk about a little later. But so we use a big auger on either like a bobcat or a case skid steer loader, and that is a 24-inch auger, and it has the capacity to go very deep. We want to hit sand or 20 feet. In this case, we hit something like sand, a very sandy-like material at about 10 to 12 feet. If it's real hard soil, that auger is spinning and spinning. It can create kind of a glazed edge that makes it difficult for the tree to root out into the native soil, which is what we want. So there's other ways you could excavate the hole. You could use a backhoe, you could use a mini excavator, you could use a jackhammer and kind of do it by hand. But the key is you want to go deep because you want to make sure you penetrate all these layers that don't have good percolation, like clay and like hardpan. In this case, this city requires that you drill the hole and plant the tree right on top of the hole after it's been settled. But that isn't really necessary. You could just drill the hole and plant the tree somewhere close to the hole, because what we're really trying to get here is good drainage. Now, by planting it right over the hole, we also have a pretty good place for the tree to start to root out. In addition to drilling that hole, what we like to do is we did an additional excavation so that we don't have just that round hole, because we want those roots to start to spread. And so we dug it out. You can see it's very hard. This is what we drilled through. It's very hard. We did an additional excavation. We widened the hole, and we did that rough so that those roots we want the roots to go out into the native soil. One of the biggest problems for trees that you'll see, particularly in areas where holes have been drilled, is that if the hole isn't settled well, the tree settles, and one of the worst things for trees is water collecting around the base of the trunk because it goes below grade. That pretty much is a death sentence for a tree if that tree drops below grade, because especially in a heavy clay soil, because water will just collect around the base of the trunk, and usually it doesn't drain very well because the soil is heavy. So what the city of Fresno does, and what we do even on jobs, backfill this very well and settle it very well. So as soon as we drill it, we fill it back in with that native soil that we just drilled, and then we fill it with water. And we do that 2 or 3 times. The city of Fresno requires we do that for 20 days, and that you refill it 3 or 4 times within those 20 days. And you can't You are not allowed to plant the tree until 20 days has passed after the drilling of the hole, which is probably a little longer than you need, but they're trying to make sure that they don't have that problem. So in this case, we drilled this probably a month and a half ago. It's way more than 20 days, and we've backfilled it with water several times. And so now we have soft soil, but we have soil that's settled, so that after we plant the tree, it's not going to settle, and that's what we want. We want to plant that tree slightly high, which I'll show you in another step, and we want it to stay slightly high. We don't want it to sink down and settle. Take it out of the container, and to do that, we're going to roll it. Well, you can do it with your hand or you can do it with your foot, and you just want to roll it. In this case, it is not root bound because it's young, and then we'll take it out. And when we take it out, you can see that it is rooted. That means it holds together, and there's roots all the way to the outer edge of the root ball, and they tend to be growing in a circle because the plastic container that they came in is circular. So we don't want them to continue to grow in a circle when we put it in the ground, but they're pretty young, tender roots, so we're just going to mess it up a little bit on the bottom and on the sides, so that those roots will start to grow out into the soil, because that's what we want to happen. So we're going to mess it up a little bit, but we don't want to mess it up so much that the root ball falls apart. So in this case, I'm going to be fairly gentle with it. Some trees that are much more mature, you wouldn't be so gentle, because you really need to break up the roots. And you do just a little bit of that on the bottom, just to scarify it a little bit. And we do that all around. And okay, and then we want to make an estimate. We want to set this tree in this hole that we've drilled, and we want to make an estimate of the proper amount of dirt to put in there to set it on, so that the top of this root ball sits just slightly above grade. And we already talked about the settling. We don't want it to ever be below the surrounding grade. So let's see how this is. I just took a guess. So as you can see, I've got it in the middle of the hole, and the tree is just slightly high, maybe an inch, and that's perfect. So the next step is the backfill around the tree, which is a really interesting one, and one with some controversy in the horticulture industry. First, before I show you that, let's talk a little bit about this tree. So this is a Keith Davey Chinese pistache. Keith Davey means it's grafted, and it's a very popular tree because by doing the graft, you can see the graft right down here, by doing the graft, you guarantee a certain spectacular fall color, and you guarantee that it's a male tree that doesn't produce berries. So Chinese pistache is a really good street tree because it doesn't have invasive roots, and it has a real nice canopy for shade. You add to that no berries and fantastic fall color every single time because it's grafted, and you've got a tree in demand. And because it's in demand, they're always very small because they sell them as soon as they're ready to sell, as soon as it's rooted out. So this is a pretty small Chinese pistache. By Keith Davey standards, it's about as big as we're going to find in California, but it still is relatively small. So the backfill is the soil medium that's going to go around the roots, and that we're going to backfill the tree with, and is the subject of some disagreement in the horticulture industry. Some people would want to, say, get a really nice potting soil and fill this hole with the potting soil, with the reasoning that this soil isn't very good, this native soil, and you can see it's very hard. You can't even put a shovel in it. And so the pile that's next to it here, we got from this area. So some people think you should get a potting soil and fill that hole with it. The problem with doing that, basically soil scientists and the best arborists agree that that should not be what you do, because the problem with doing that is you create what you might call the bathtub effect, where you've got this soil that's inside the drilled area that's fantastic, and everything else is terrible soil and a real difference in texture, so that the tree has a difficult time rooting out into the native soil. The roots just stay inside that good soil, which isn't a strongly rooted tree. Also, you have problems with water staying just inside that area where you have the good soil in it, and where that interface is to the native soil, it can't drain into that. So we're not going to backfill with some kind of potting soil. We're going to use the native soil. In fact, we're not even going to use, it's not even recommended to use forest humus or organic matter. We're going to use almost exclusively native soil, and then we're going to use our product, which you can use other products also, but we're going to use something that doesn't really change the texture of the soil, but adds beneficial soil life, and it adds food for life and attractants for life, so that we're creating a medium in here that can grow beneficial bacteria and fungi and good protozoa. Sometimes you hear people talk about putting whatever amendments they're going to use in the bottom of the hole. I really believe that's backwards. We should put it closer to the top of the hole, because then as the water starts to break down those nutrients, it moves through the root zone. If you put it at the bottom of the hole, the tree's young, doesn't really have any roots yet, and it starts to break down and it goes down farther and doesn't get to the tree. So I like to put all of the special organic ingredients at the top of the hole, right around the root ball and beyond, all in the hole that we've prepared with this native soil. One of the other interesting things to consider when we place the tree, I mentioned that it was a grafted tree. And so the graft is right here, and the graft can be sensitive to sun. So we want to point the graft towards the northeast so that it gets the least amount of hot sun right on it, because that can damage that attachment where the new trunk comes out of the graft. Pruning is, if you think you lost a lot of roots in planting a tree, you might want to thin it a little. On the other hand, small trees like this, I'd like to leave all the leaves I can, because it's leaves through photosynthesis that feed the tree and allow it to continue to grow. So there's really not much pruning to be done on this. Sometimes small trees like this come with a lot of growth along the trunk, and that growth along the trunk can be important in protecting the trunk from the sun. So usually if I had growth along the trunk, I would not take it all off, because I'd be concerned about the sunburn, but I would just shorten it and just keep small leaves along the trunk that can shade the trunk, protect the trunk till it gets a little bit bigger. So those are the types of pruning considerations you need to make. What you're going to do with the trunk, these came already clear, so I have nothing even to think about. The staking is one of the most important parts of planting a tree, and frequently done incorrectly. What we know for a fact is that trees develop strength in the trunk and will be able to get along without any staking if you allow them to move. So we want to do some kind of staking here, that when the wind blows, this trunk will move. And if the trunk moves when the wind blows, it will develop a bigger caliper at the bottom of the trunk, and if you have that bigger caliper, you know you have a tree that can stand on its own. It's best if you can plant trees without staking. That's best for the tree, but the problem is you try that, and you can see this one, I haven't even finished taking it off. but let's say we tried it without staking, you can see it's already leaning and it's going to grow that way. Then you get some wind and it's going to even be more crooked. So you have this crooked tree that doesn't look good and is subject to falling over. So what we're going to do is some corrective staking, but done in a way that allows it to stand on its own straight and strong after a couple of years. So we have the stakes straight. Now we'll put some type of flexible, we have some what are called wonder ties, and they're rubber, and so they're flexible, and we'll use them. We'll use 2 up here and 2 down here, and then this tree will move when the wind blows. That's our goal. So there you have it, a beautifully staked tree, strong, sturdy. It'll move when the wind blows like that, develop strength in the trunk, and now we'll water it in and we'll watch it grow over the years. So we want to water it very thoroughly and deeply. So improve your community, improve your house, shade your life, make your life better with a beautiful shade tree like Keith Davey Chinese pistache. Make sure you plant it properly in the right place and you support it properly, and it will be a tremendous benefit to your everyday life.
Hey there, friends. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell. Want to learn more about our products? Then head over to our website, www.johnandbobs.com.